Welcome, friends, to Color of Magic episode 223. Man, we are getting up there. Your Magic Gaming podcast where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, Aquan Watson, and for 223 episodes, still got my main man who fortunately has power and isn't frozen, Brian Allen. How's it going, dude?
Yep. The main computer died, but we do have power and heat and all that good stuff. So yeah, I guess the Texas grid for another storm appears to have held together somehow.
Dude, that beats the alternative because man, there were places around the country I saw had like minus 40 or something. In some spots, it was just crazy. Also, for those of you watching on YouTube, hopefully this will be a better viewing experience. We're going to be trying some stuff in editing, so uh, let us know if it works for you or not, because this is going to be a kind of a different little ride here.
Some of this new stuff was planned, some was unplanned.
Yep, we're just going with it. But before we get into everything, be sure to check out our sponsor over at CoolStuffInc.com. You can use code DRAGON, save you 5% on any of your nerd stuff you want to get. Doesn't matter if it's Magic, D&D, Pokemon, whatever you want to pick up. But be sure to use our code because it helps us out and it helps you out. Over at Cool Stuff Inc., good people. They always have cool stuff in stock because it's in their name. And you can support the show by going to patreon.com/color of magic and get a shout out just like John Cooper. Thank you so much for being actually a patron for a while now. So yeah, thanks for that. And colorofmtg.com/shop if you want to pick up some merchandise and support us when you go out to events and things.
And you made me think of thank you for being a friend.
Exactly. That's exactly it. But yeah, let's get into our lead story here. It's going to leave a bunch of Magic players kind of upset. And Murders at Karlov Manor, the next Magic set that releases in about 6 weeks or so, is sadly, I guess 4 weeks now, is actually not going to have the streamer early access event. It has officially been canceled. And this is one that some of us kind of saw coming. And people say, I don't know why they can't do it. It's like, this isn't just a cost savings issue. This feels like it's more of a personnel issue. Because is there a cost? Yes, because you got to pay some people to work an extra day or two and make it happen or whatever. But ultimately, it's about having people organize all the moving parts. And in this case, you let a few people go. One guy who was basically in charge of dealing with a lot of the creators. I heard one or two others that were involved with the process, but from other departments. So once you start losing more than just a couple of bodies, it starts to become hard to organize because I don't think people understand how many moving parts there are to that type of event. Because you got to have one group that's just the devs, right? Because they have to be available. Because part of the deal is, as you find errors, they're fixing them in live time, hopefully, so they can fix them so you can keep playing on the early access event. But also, so it's ready to go by the time it goes live for the general public. You also have people managing the Discord so they can respond to everybody and structuring the Discord and doing all that. And then you have somebody who puts together all the emails that have to go with the creator's passwords and everything else because it's on a private server. And then the morning of, some people can't log in or there's issues.
Yeah.
There's
Anybody that has been in the program or has tried to do the streamer program is already where they were struggling before they laid some of these people off. Because as we've talked about on here, it's been very difficult for them to even get invites to the event out before a day or two before it's time for this thing to happen. So I don't think they probably didn't have enough people working the thing before this, and now they certainly don't.
Yeah, and to be fair to Wizards, and it's like their early access event was a pretty big undertaking. I mean, because they had even in the Discord, you would see channels set up for like different countries and languages and whatever. So there were people from all over the world. So hundreds of creators that were invited. And most of the time when you get early access to games, it's just like, hey, here's a code. They pick like, 20 to 50 creators and they're streaming it or whatever. And that's kind of it. This was like, hey, we want to get everybody in. We want everybody playing each other. We have these roles. We're setting up these servers, right? And kind of making a to do out of it. And you can't really do that if you're losing bodies.
Do you think it ever gets back to that point?
I think we can. I think next set, because the issue I would see, and this part is me speculating, but everybody, those releases happened just before the holidays, right? It was like the week before, 2 weeks before, something like that. It was right near Christmas. So you really didn't have time to restructure anything because those people are kind of doing exit interviews and getting their paperwork together and whatever, and then they're gone.
But I
Nobody's
think the thing that frustrates people is you always knew a new set was coming out. Was that not taken into account
well, but
before you
but the
laid
thing
people
is,
off?
yeah, that's exactly it, right? Because those people were expecting to be there handling it, right? So then you have 2 weeks of Christmas and New Year's basically where nobody's in the office. You come back and now you're telling the new faces like, hey, by the way, we have stream early access in like 4 weeks. Y'all got to get all your stuff together, whatever. And it's like, yeah, what? Right? You're pushing me into this new position. They've got to figure out all the workings, figure out where work was dropped and catch up or whatever. And like it's a lot. And honestly, even if they could pull it off, it would probably be a big headache with more errors that it's probably better to just not do it and just say, let's just wait until the next set when we can do it right.
And because I've seen obviously this happen in journalism sometimes where they say, okay, such and such project is coming up. Because I think the release said the layoffs were going to be staggered. This might be a case of where they asked somebody to stay until Karlov Manor, and they said, "Hey, no, if you're laying me off, I need to go ahead and try to find another job. I really can't focus on this." Because it would you would understand if somebody said that to him, or if several people said that to him, because if you know you're about to get laid off, your primary function now is you're trying to figure out what your next gig is. Or hey, if somebody has been already kind of blowing up your DM saying, "Would you like to come and work for Yu-Gi-Oh or Lorcana or whoever?" Okay, now you go. You might not have been looking at that job offer before, but now obviously, yeah, now you got to look at that offer.
And that I would even agree with that. It said it may not even be just that. Some people sometimes do it out of solidarity. Some
Also
people,
true.
like you're saying, some people are doing it because of opportunity. Some people just want to get a head start, especially when the holidays are coming up. You know what? I'm going to take my extra 2 weeks. I'm taking practically the whole month of December off, and then I'm just going to go do
Yeah,
my thing. Cash in my 2 weeks vacation or
exactly.
whatever.
And some of the employees were really long-term employees, so there's no telling how much time they have stacked up.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. I can tell you from being there, some people will have had at least 6 weeks, if not 8 weeks, saved up, and they probably didn't use them all throughout the year, so they had that
Right.
they could cash out. You also have, a pretty good severance package for a lot of people there. Obviously, even if you're higher up and you're more tenured, those are going to be even bigger. And then some of those people, because like you're saying, there's some of them were 12 years, 15 years, 20 years being there. They have a lot saved up even in 401k in that time.
Yeah.
So they're not hurting to just take that extra couple weeks off and whatever and just bounce or what would have ultimately been maybe 3 months or something, right? Like they could just leave early and just get started on the next track of their career. If they even if they just don't want to retire, they might have enough to retire at this point. I don't know.
I remember my murder mystery group used to contract with, well, I won't say the company's name, but yeah, for about 4 or 5 years straight, I never spent New Year's with my wife because we had a show every New Year's at a certain place. And just when that contract actually expired, yeah, I was sad to not have the New Year's Eve show, but I could actually spend midnight with my wife,
Yeah,
on New Year's for the first time in almost a decade.
that's a good point. I mean, that stuff matters. So yeah, this could have happened for a lot of reasons, basically. But I do think it's more of a personnel issue more than like a system issue or I guess a decision to just not do it. It feels more like they just said, "Hey, this was probably going to be wrought with problems. Let's just go ahead and wait. We can do it right on the next set." Or even if you're not sure, be like, "Okay, let's let it go and see how much people talk about it, question it, see what the value was," which people have already started complaining about it.
Yeah, so
So
clearly people were expecting to have it.
yeah, so that'll probably lean toward them doing it again with the next set. And don't forget, like we did have a window of time where we didn't have early access events for almost a year. I think there was 3 or 4 sets where we didn't have it. And then I guess 5 sets ago, we got them back and started doing them again. So
And obviously, if the sales are not what they want them to be, well, absolutely, he'd be trying to do it again next time.
yeah. But and there is a question on what the value is to them as a company, but there is the reality that sometimes people will wait to purchase cards, whether that's physical or digital, until they get ideas of how those cards work or they see a
I think
deck with
that's
certain things that they could go buy or whatever, you know?
I think that's with all gaming now. Unless you're just a super fan, like for example, I'm gonna buy Madden and probably MLB The Show every year. I don't need you to tell me if it's good. I just it's a thing I do every year. It's on my gaming time. But yeah, most people like to see, even if it's something they're a big fan of, they wait and see somebody else play it, or at
Mhm.
least read a review. Because let's be honest, sometimes they're even the multi-million-dollar like Madden. Sometimes they're terrible.
That is true. That is totally true. But yeah, so that's where we are. No early access this time. So if you were looking forward to that in a couple weeks, it's sadly not going to happen for this set. But we'll see how each creator handles that, how new decks get rolled out for the first week or two, and we'll just go from there. Not really much else to say about that one. But that does bring us to the soapbox. So we have some pretty interesting stuff this week. All right. So for those who don't know about CES, it's the Consumer Electronics Show. And they kind of show off a little bit of everything in the world of electronics. There's everything from things that fit in your pocket to giant, literal now 114-inch TVs to fancy cars to home security stuff, whatever, right? All the kind of new stuff that's going to be coming out, or really fun concept stuff of just like, hey, just to show you like companies want to say, hey, we're innovating and we're working on these weird things. And here's what could possibly be something in the future or something similar. And honestly, even stuff like those things you saw in the Minority Report where you had like the shaded windows that you could end up or mirrors that you could type on or whatever, those are real now. Like they previewed those at CES, but we have stuff like that now.
Oh
So
my god, what'd you tell me that for?
yeah, I know. Like,
I'm
dude, I'm gonna tell you something else. I just
curious.
discovered there are refrigerators because you know you can make ice on the fridge, right? That's not new. We have fridges you can see through. That's not new. Even some that for whatever reason have wireless connectivity and can send you notes on your phone or whatever. They now have
Okay.
some that make spherical ice, which I thought was great because, you know, if you're a drinker and whatever and you want to get the round ice, or like, yeah, they have fridges that just make that now, which I thought was crazy. But that's not my gripe. My gripe is that Sony literally did the living example of just because we can doesn't mean we should. So this guy, who was one of the important people at Sony, I can't remember his title, but he drives in this car using a PS5 controller. And at first, everybody was kind of like, okay, so he brought this car in. All right, cool. And I guess that's a neat thing. But then he says it's a thing they actually want to produce. And you could tell there was like a weird little buzz and some people kind of puckered up a little bit. And the question became, why?
But why though? It is a
Yeah.
but why though?
Like, okay, let me tell you my concerns and I'll let you hop in here. But my first big thought is you can't really have a steering wheel that's not mounted. There's two, like, we drop stuff in the car as it is now,
Yeah.
right? Could you imagine somebody fumbling and dropping their steering wheel effectively? Or, you know, how you're dozing off at the wheel now, even more so with automated driving or whatever, and it makes a noise to let you know you're starting to drift off the road, and you wake up, fumble the controller, instant accident, right? Like that's not good. So it has to be a mounted controller. But then what if somebody syncs a controller to your vehicle that's not your controller? Because that's got to be a possibility.
Yeah, you're driving past all kinds of people's houses. Some of these people are going to be playing, according to, I guess, recent results, at least what 20 to 25 million of these people own PlayStations.
Yeah, so like so that's another issue. And it's just the idea that we've seen how people act in vehicles when they're already just going to hell. There's tons of different YouTube videos, TikTok videos of people just running their vehicle into other vehicles because they're pissed off or mad at their boss or whatever. Imagine if they weren't in the vehicle, what they would do. Like you could literally just be mad at your boss and just run the car right into the building. No ramification because you're not behind the wheel. Like I can't imagine any way that this gets approved by the automotive board. Like there's just
Wouldn't so.
no way, right?
I
I
wouldn't think so. But
I don't know. What are your concerns with something like? Because this just seems like a thing that is just crazy.
first thing I thought of, every controller I have ever owned at some point, even or also every console has a controller where after let's say 2 or 3 years, it starts drifting.
Oh yeah,
I've had, and it varies. Sometimes you like the one that came with the PS5 still doesn't. The one I bought later, for some reason, it started drifting after maybe 5 or 6 months. So it's not, it just some of them are for like anything else. Some of them are made way better than others. See, can you imagine? You're just, and you don't get a warning. You don't get a, hey, your controller's buzzed. You just all of a sudden, you throw a pass in my case, and it goes 20 feet that way because all of a sudden the controller's not working right anymore. Can you imagine driving and all of a sudden
Yeah, that's
everything
another
pulls
thing
to the
too.
left?
Yeah,
And once
because
it's started, there is no fix. If that happens while you're driving, you're just till you get somewhere it can stop. You're just pulled
well,
off to the
yeah,
left.
because right, if it's a mounted steering wheel, you just go pay to have your adjustment or whatever, right? But in this case, you would literally have to just get a whole other controller.
Yeah,
So like, I don't know, man. Like this, I don't know. Like it,
I don't know who asked for this.
and it's one of those things that again, it's you go like, oh, you know what we could do? But then once you do it, it's kind of like, yeah, but why'd we do this? Like, who does this
Don
benefit?
Hammond, you done too much. It's just
Yeah, because my thought is like, what's the bit like most of the stuff you see at CES, even though it's like wild and crazy, they can at least explain to you like some reasonably good use cases, right? This is why we even considered doing this. I don't think there's a good use case for anything to have a car
I wish
controlled
I had
by.
a stand-up comedy defensive driving class coming up soon. This is this I can see easily 10 minutes on this.
Now, okay, one use I just thought about. If you wanted to start an actual league and you could do giant RC cars, like
And
that,
that's big money right there. You guys just
that's a
doing this to
thing.
replace cars.
Yeah.
Just
So
there are
that
people that there are people balling like that. I am not, as of yet, one of them.
so if you wanted to do that and that became a league, kind of like you do the drone races, but now you're just be doing it with actual full size remote control cars.
Mm.
But for people actually driving them and be like full size cars, like this just feels like a bad idea. But all right, Brian, what do you got?
Well, Ubisoft, I guess, having one of their, hey, how much money are we rolling around in conference calls? And I guess they're trying to figure out why people aren't signing up for Ubisoft Plus. By the way, side soapbox, can we come up with a better way to name your premium service than just your company's name plus everybody's doing it? It's tired. But yeah, this executive said one of the problems and reason why people aren't signing up for this yet is because gamers just are not yet comfortable not owning their games. As you know, gamers and gamer media go like, what? Yeah, true. Excuse me. Not trying in the near future to get comfortable with not. We just discussed a couple of podcasts ago that Sony deleted a bunch of people's content on order of World Discovery because lo and behold, you didn't own it. You paid for it, but you paid for Sony's license to it, and that license expired. So yeah, all your however many seasons of Below Deck you bought, you ain't got those no more. So no, people are not wanting to sign up for even more of that. It's not fun. It's not. I know we do a lot of it with our various systems, but I know I'm trying to figure out ways to own more of the things I bought, not less.
Yeah, I don't even think it's just that. I mean, there's also the reality of people already signed up to a lot of different services. We've talked about that before,
Also
you
true.
know. So do people want to sign up for another $10-$20 thing on top of their 3 video game services and their
Yeah.
5 streaming services and like probably hell, yeah, what was it? One of the car companies was trying to get you on a payment service for heated seats at one point, right?
God.
So it's like,
Every
yeah, people aren't wanting to sign up for more of that. But
Especially not from Ubisoft, where let's be honest, the Ubisoft formula, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, go here, destroy 5 of these bases. It's a successful formula, but it is not an innovative formula. Their latest games, basically Far Cry, but make it Avatar. And yeah, the reviews are, of if you like Far Cry style games and Avatar, this is your jam and it's fun and like Avatar, it's very pretty, but you can't call it innovative, certainly, because it's
yeah,
Far Cry but made it Avatar. Like Just Cause is Far Cry, with a wingsuit, or Assassin's Creed if you prefer.
I
They
think
just
that
don't.
the issue for me feels like you identified this as a problem, but you didn't change your service to let people download things, right? To just have the game. So it's just like but the only middle ground I can come up with is like something where you are paying for your monthly service, you get access to the whatever library they're giving you. But then if you want to keep a copy of it, maybe you pay an additional price for that product, right? Like maybe you're paying 10 or $20 a month, whatever it is. But then if you want, say, Assassin's Creed, the new one, you say, okay, I'm going to pay an extra 20 or $25 because I just want to download that and have it because it's going to take me a while to finish it. But I want to still mess around with other games that are going to show up on the service. But for some reason, nobody wants to offer that with their services.
Because they'd rather you pay $15 a month or whatever it is, and then not own the thing, and then hey, all your licenses to your game disappeared. Got to go buy
Which is
something
so weird
else.
to me because you would still get money from people. Like there's people are still gonna pay whatever the low price is to have access to the literal hundreds of games they're giving you practically every month between like Sony and Microsoft. So like you can
But
play
I
a
guess
ton.
apparently they're not, because the whole point is, I guess, is leaked out because they were complaining about their Ubisoft numbers not going anywhere.
I mean, maybe Ubisoft just ain't making all the games that people want to play right now. Like I mean, that's the other part. Like you're saying,
Yeah,
you're not making new and fun, innovative things. So but yeah, that's
that's
an
the
interesting
problem they don't
point
want
though.
to address. Right there, that can't be it.
Yeah, exactly. We
It's
got
the
to blame it
kids
on
who are
something
wrong.
else. It's them. What is this? It's those damn millennials not buying
You're
enough
right.
video games. Hey, I don't know.
Millennials have been,
We're the ones responsible for apparently lowering the diamond business or something because we're not
yeah, we've
buying
been
enough
accused
diamonds
of
or whatever.
murdering so many things.
Yeah, so whatever. I just don't understand that. But all right, let's hop into what did we learn this week because there's actually two really interesting things here that I think might surprise people. So what do you got, Brian?
I forget how many episodes ago it was, but I declared, and I believe my soapbox, that Dead by Daylight at this point is probably the best licensed game ever made. We have a shared video game universe, including Freddy Krueger, Michael. At this point, almost every horror game killer or survivor you could want from movies, TV shows, and video games, and they continue dropping the mic. January 30th, Alan Wake. Yes, that Alan Wake, star of multiple Game of the Year nominee, Alan Wake 2, one of the best survival horror series in history, is dropping in Dead by Daylight. At this point, the Dead by Daylight survivors are the survival horror Avengers. I mean, they got Silent Hill characters, you got your Alan Wake characters, Laurie Strode from Halloween. Everybody's in this game. Chucky is in this game. There's very few killers slash survivors that are famous in the horror genre that aren't in this game yet. And the ones that aren't in, you figure at this point, it's just a matter of time, a matter of legal wranglings and things like that. Yeah, everybody's. I think they're all going to probably be there eventually, and then as more horror movie franchises come out, we'll see them come into, and it's the
You
best
know,
shared universe in gaming right now.
I'm curious. Is Did something like Smash Brothers kind of lay down the groundwork to show people what was possible?
It feels
Right?
like it did. That's
Like, if we jam all these characters in from all these licenses that we know people like now, admittedly, those were all under one house, so it was kinda easy to do, but then it was like, okay, we started seeing a couple other games. Okay, let us bring in some special guest characters into, like, Mortal Kombat, I think, did a couple, and,
yeah,
like, alright, and that got people excited, and then you got, like, Fortnite that has, gosh, I don't know, probably, like, 50 different licenses kinda brought into that
right.
game. Right? And then now you're getting it here with Dead by Daylight, and like each of these is very big properties that have well, I guess except for Fortnite, I was gonna say has been around a while. Fortnite's probably the newest of those, but still highly successful. Maybe there's something to this that's working.
Definitely, we're seeing just I think also the Sony Marvel partnerships has shown how much money you can make if you just are willing to work together on a couple of things. After Smash Brothers, the thing we never thought would happen, Mario and Sonic started playing together at the
Mhm.
Olympic Games. So it's just there's so much money to be made if people are willing to put their rivalries and their prejudices aside and make that money.
Yeah,
And
just
also
license
just
it
be a lot
out.
of fun for people that are fans of these properties.
I've said that for years. Just license it out, get a percentage of the money. You know,
Right?
hell, as wrestling fans, a couple of years ago, we saw that for the first time start happening, right? Where
Yep,
AEW
a
does the whole
forbidden
forbidden
door.
door thing, right? Hell, even WWE though had wrestlers from organizations. Hell, they had Mickey James come in carrying her belt from TNA or whatever, or from Impact, whatever, right? So maybe everybody's realizing that hey, cross branding is good for business. You know, like, there's something there.
Let people enjoy things. And just because you like, Dustin Rhodes mentioned this the other day. Like, stop, hating on you. You should want both companies to succeed if you're a fan of wrestling, because both two big wrestling companies on TV pushes the product forward. It forces nobody can sit there and rest on their laurels because, good lord, we've seen what happens when WWE has no competition.
Random side note, you know who the biggest merch mover is right now?
Oh, our truth. I saw
Yep.
that. Our truth is just
Dude, those
so
Judgment Day
awesome.
shirts are selling. Like he passed CM Punk
Which
even
is
for the most.
insane
He
considering
is the
CM
number
Punk
one
knows
seller.
the voice. Everything our truth has ever been given to do for that company, he has crushed.
Like even if you're not a wrestling fan, go search our truth promo and you will see a video dated for 2 weeks ago. It is shot like a real documentary and it's the dumbest thing in the world, but so well done. One of the best things WWE has ever done as one of those pre-recorded vignettes. It is so good, like just top tier comedy.
Best comedic character they have had since Santino Marella, and,
Yeah,
and, I was,
probably. That's
and
probably
he's
true.
and he's there are a lot of people, and I'm one of them, who think they probably should have let Santino win the Royal Rumble. I think even they didn't anticipate how how big the crowd reaction is going to be when it got down to just him. And I want to say it was Alberto Del Rio, and they're like, "Oh my God, could Santino win the Rumble?"
Dude, being real though, he had one of the best debuts for a wrestler ever. Like
Yep,
seriously, that's going to be hard to top.
the Milan Miracle.
Yep.
And especially, with how Alberto Del Rio's career turned out, he turned out to be just a
Nah.
complete piece of garbage. Man, if they could go back in time and pull the trigger on Santino instead of Alberto.
Yeah, that's a thing you don't want to look up on the internet. Dude,
Great.
just a bad human in a lot of ways. But I found out, and this one really surprised me, that Rock Band 4 has new DLC coming. I and don't get me wrong, I think Rock Band, great franchise,
Absolutely.
really made bank for about a good 5, 6 year window in there. It was top tier. But I thought they were done. I didn't even, they said their last piece of DLC comes out on January 25th.
That's
So
awesome.
if you are a Rock Band fan, hey, there's still another packet of stuff coming that you can download soon, which is wild. I would have never even like. I remember, and we were talking about this off the air. I remember when I think it was like 2017, they had produced the last VCR, and I was stunned at that because I didn't even know
Right.
anybody who'd even touched a VCR except for like when they want to watch their really old Disney cassettes or something, Disney tapes and put them in there. So yeah, I didn't even think that was a thing. So to find out that Rock Band 4 still has content coming out, that's actually pretty sweet.
I
I
think
don't know.
one of the things
Mhm.
that unfortunately killed them and other music games is the fact that you couldn't stream them on Twitch because of all the music
Yeah.
licensing and everything, that's really popular, even stuff that is kind of has niche popularity. There's somebody on Twitch that's helping drive said popularity. And the fact that you, for the most part, can't do that with Rock Band outside of, I think, there's a few groups that have said, I want to say Dragon Force, who but famous for Rock Band, the fire and the flames, which I
Yeah.
think is traditionally the hardest game in either Rock Band or Guitar Hero. I forget which, but I think they
Yeah.
said, yeah, use all our music. We're cool with it.
I think over time too, peripheral games just kind of had a time. I think because there was like DJ ones, there was drum
Yeah.
set ones, there was just so many different ones. And then I think after a point, it's just like I don't want to hold on to all this stuff just to play a game. I want to pop out every once in a while. But yeah, cool though that still has content coming. I wouldn't even considered it. So that was actually a pretty cool thing just come across this morning.
And apparently, I think either Rock Band, I want to say it was Guitar Hero, tried to buy Prince's music, and he was like, "No, thumbs down." We need Dave Chappelle to do a comedy sketch about like the video game developers trying to convince Prince to let people play his music. You know that meeting was epic. It had to be.
Maybe
That,
like the thing about Prince is some stuff is like super epic and others are just deadpan short. Like there are literally multiple stories where he just went, "No," and then just left. Like, there's
right.
a story where I think it was like MTV ran a contest for like Prince to come to your town or whatever, right? If I remember right, the story was like he got on this plane, went to this little town in the middle of nowhere, literally showed up. I don't even think he performed, just like hung out for like 2 hours, got back on a plane, went home, and people still were excited about it.
Right, because it's
But
Prince.
he was in his head, he's like, "Why am I going to this little whatever?" Like, just did it, took his pictures, whatever, signed some things, got on a plane, went back home. Because that's Prince. I mean, like, that's just how he was sometimes. Like, crazy. But all right, let's get into some of our other topics of the week because there's a couple interesting points here. All right, so looping back to Murders at Karlov Manor, we found out who the killer was, which was a little weird, because it was all like, hey, there's these clues and we're going to find out there's a murder that happened here. Obviously, it's in the title and you got to figure out who the killer is. But then they kind of just told us in this video they put together on Tuesday. And then, they talked about it on their Twitch show or whatever. And you can go to YouTube, look up Murders of Karlov Manor. It's still out there. So I'm not going to spoil it if you don't want to know it, but it's out there if you want to see it. The thing that was weird is because it felt like maybe there should have been a story element that got released the day before or something. So if people wanted the full thing around it, and don't get me wrong, they didn't just come out and just say like, "Here's the killer." They at least went through the song and dance of like this suspect. Here's why he believes each of these people did it or whatever, and then here's the person and why they did it. Right. So that was a little weird. It felt a little like I don't know if I want to say anticlimactic, but almost like
Very
you're
anti, not just the way they did it, but the fact, and again, without spoiling it, this is kind of like you had to when you mentioned who it was, like, oh yeah, I kind of remember them, but not really.
yeah. To me, it felt like just circumventing expectations, maybe, that
Yeah,
might be
it's they,
correct.
they do this on TV shows where it's kind of like, oh, who shot Jr. And it's not any of the characters you would care about. It's
Bruh,
some characters that could easily be written out.
like, that's for real showing your age. Y'all, if you don't know, y'all gotta go Google that. Like, that was a whole moment in time for like, that was a social media scandal before social media. We talk about who shot JR.
Well, I started to say somebody else, but that's the prototype. That's kind of where it really got started and took off. So I could have said somebody else, but even if you've done any study of TV and media, you've probably at least heard of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the epic
Yeah,
one.
so, the thing there, though, it kinda was saved because they sorta said, "Okay, here's kind of the through line, and this is the story," but there are still a lot of puzzles to solve. I believe they said there was a lot. I feel like the number was, like, 16 maybe? I don't know why that's in my head that that's the correct number, but a lot of puzzles nonetheless. And each product, everything from like pre-release kits, booster boxes, whatever, there's going to be clues still scattered throughout. And they have a website set up. I believe it's ravnicadetectiveagency.org, I think is the website. Maybe it's .com that you can go to and people can put in clues as they're discovered or whatever, and it'll unlock the next thing and the next thing. And then when people somebody solves the final one, I believe he said it's going to unlock an additional story, filling in more of the gaps or whatever. So there's at least still a thing to work for, and you still get to do the sort of mystery, solve a thing. It was just kind of weird, and this is kind of the tough part anyway, right? When you're producing a set that tells a story, was there a way to even do that without directly revealing the killer, or do you just do it in a story online, but the clues are hidden among the cards, but the cards never tell you who the killer is?
I
You
will
know,
say it's better than I guess The Sopranos. At least we know who the killer is. The Sopranos, we never found out.
that's true. That's also true. So yeah, it was just a weird thing. I don't know if there is a correct way, when it comes to stuff like that. Because that's the weird thing where you're trying to tell a story, but you're also trying to get cards out in front of people. And then if you're going to be previewing cards, you wouldn't want people to ruin or figure out the story and post about it before you did. So like it's a weird song and dance. I don't know, but I'll at least give them credit for saying like even though it was a little weird just to find out who the killer was, it is cool that there's at least a lot of still puzzle clue solving elements that you still get to do all that around it. And I almost wish on some level we could have promoted it more about solving these puzzles and clues or whatever, and maybe something really cool is being revealed in that last story chunk, and just let the set be about, oh, there's this murder, and here's this guy who solved the murder, but now you've got to figure out all the clues as to why and what that leads to or something, right? Like, I think there was a different way we could have presented it to where that doesn't feel as bad.
This is this is a set where the lore for real needed to carry you, and as we discussed, they're not really good at that.
Now, that being said, we also found out about their Clue product that was related. Because for those you don't know, there was supposed to be a Ravnica themed Clue game that was to come out alongside Murders at Karlov Manor. And there's still going to be rare cards and exclusive things, so the product's still going to have value. So I'm not saying don't go buy it or whatever, because I think some of the cards in there are going to have some real value and probably going to be worth owning. And from what I understand, pre-orders were good with different websites and stuff already, different retailers. So people want it. Cool. But the flaw here for me was that they made they did a thing when I was at Wizards that I try, and Chris Cox was actually kind of in favor in this when we had a conversation before, was there should be more things that allow people to enjoy Magic or D&D without having to play Magic. And unfortunately this clue related product is basically a way to play Magic with extra steps to solve the mystery. Or, depending on how you look at it, to play Clue with extra steps through playing a game of Magic. Right? And I don't know that that was really necessary. I think a lot of people are just like, hey, we just want some sub game that's related to Clue of just like, I got to pick the person and the weapon or whatever and the location. However, you want to do that, just in this box with some unique cards. But then we kind of got that, but it's, oh, I have to play a game of Magic so I can ask the questions and then eventually try to figure it out. And it's like, was that really necessary though? Like I could see people just getting it and then coming up with the variation and not ever playing the game of Magic to solve the game, right? And that's probably what a lot of people are going to do. Because especially right now, I think once upon a time, I think that logic might have been correct. To like we need to do fun things and give people Magic variations or whatever. The problem is now we already have Commander. A lot of people play 4-player Commander, and that's a thing. We have pre-packaged stuff like the Magic Game Night thing that comes with 5 one-color decks or whatever that are themed. So that already exists. We also already have Arch Enemy, so you can play 3 or 4 players against 1 player. So that already exists. It's like we don't need any more variants on how to play Magic. Hell, we also have the plane chase, right? So you can have a different location to go to and with different effects.
I expect, like you said, they're probably looking for the next commander, and the thing is, they didn't create commander to begin with. The players came up with
Oh,
commander.
believe me, they're not even worried about that because they make so much money on Commander anyway. They just want Commander to keep going. Like
If you
that's
come
the
up
thing.
with another one, you wouldn't say no to it, right?
Sure, but I think it would be so much effort to shift. Like it would have to be phenomenally better to get people to want to jump from Commander right now. But again, I think that the product's still going to sell, so I don't think it's a bad product. I'm not saying that. I just think the expectation you could see it in the comments and even from people I've talked to since, like there was a little bit of a letdown of just like, oh, we got another Magic variant with some clue stuff in it, and so I was like, oh, okay, I guess. But like not the excitement of, oh, there's going to be just a whole different game in this box that has Magic stuff, but has the clue like solve the mystery thing. And I don't think anybody really knew what to expect, but it
But
wasn't that.
nobody expected this.
Yeah, and I think that was the thing. So, I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's probably still going to be fine. The cards they previewed so far that are inside of it actually look pretty sweet, and I think people are going to want them for multiple different formats, so that's cool. But it was just like you could tell there was just like a weird feel when they announced that part of it. There wasn't the excitement around it. I think the set still got a lot of sweet cards, and credit to them because during their event they previewed a lot of cards. Those like usually you'll get like 6 or 8 or something. I felt like this time there was like 15 or 20 that we got to see kind of right out the gate, which was pretty cool, and some different art treatments and stuff. So I think the set's still going to be cool. It was just, I don't know. I think there was the way it was set up and promoted. There was these expectations, and then you know how it is. Like you build it up in your head, and then you see it, and it's just like, oh, that wasn't really what I wanted. But I guess it's fine. Like that's kind of what it is there. But let's talk about a new board game that's coming. So, Brian, have you heard about Wingspan? I think we've talked
I
about
have
that before.
indeed. It's one of the most popular new games in the. I forget, was it 2022 or 2023 when it first came
No, it came out well before that, actually. I got a
out? Okay,
copy. I want to say maybe I got a copy late in 2020, but I didn't even open mine for a year because I
okay,
wasn't
yeah,
gaming with
2020.
people. Yeah. So it's been around a minute. Uh, Created by a very obviously talented woman, but there's a new game coming called Wormspan, which is weird, but worm with a Y, meaning there are dragons. So if you want a variation of this game that actually is about raising and I guess battling dragons at some
You
point,
know I do.
here you go. And what's cool is they also made sure that this one has a woman designer, it has a woman artist, so they've kept the flavor and the theme from the original, but this one's just dragons instead of birds.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be available next week, I believe. So
Oh wow. Okay, yeah.
it's right around the corner, and I think it's going to be priced around the same. So I think like $45 or something like that. So really cool, man. Like the game was so popular, we're now getting spin-offs of it, which I imagine was only a matter of time.
That's what you want.
Yeah. Now, will I own it? I don't know. I think this is one where I'm gonna have to see how different it is. Like, are there enough special rules or something that it plays a little bit differently? Because if it
Yeah,
plays the
my
same,
daughter loves dragons, so yeah, this is probably first day purchase
well,
for
there you
us.
go. Yeah, I already own the original, and I was already thinking about getting some expansions for that. So
And that's what I think a lot of people. That's what they're counting on, is that there are so many people that love dragons, and if you give me anything dragon related, that's even kind of fun to play, we're going in.
that's fair. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think for me, it's just, is it different enough? I feel that way about all my games, where there's a variant. It's like, like we talked about earlier, people have Monopoly, but it's like, all right, I'm gonna get the Star Wars Monopoly. Okay, is it the same thing with just Star Wars skin, or are there extra rules that make it feel more Star Wars that happens to be Monopoly? Right? If so, then maybe I'll pick it up. If not, I'm just gonna have my Monopoly board. You know, that's sort of what I'm feeling like here. I kind of already like the game, already have it. Do I want to go invest another 45, $50? Maybe. But if there's some cool
Also,
rules,
when does the Game of Thrones variation come out? Because that license just sells itself right there.
maybe that's an expansion for Wormspan, right? Like I don't know. But like there could be cool rules of just like, hey, do some eggs hatch two dragons, or can certain ones only, like, you have certain cards that change the season and some dragons do, like, okay, cool. If there's stuff like that, then I'll probably pick it up. But I just think the idea is neat though, man. It's
Some dragons don't listen, and they might eat the rider. Oops.
yeah, exactly. Like, are there dragon riders, right? That could be a thing. But yeah, it's a cool idea. I don't even remember the last game I've played where like dragons were the actual focus. Right? There are games like Suro that have like artsy dragons on it, but you're not really doing anything with dragons. Like,
Smash Up has a dragon faction, because Smash Up,
yeah,
has gonna have every faction in existence at some point.
but I think this could be cool because, depending on what type of dragons they use, because like the thing about Wingspan is there's like 50 different birds or whatever in the game, right? Here you would probably have to do some like Asian style dragons, right? The Chinese dragons. You might have to do some old mythological old English dragons. Do they get licenses to use certain dragons in future expansions, right?
I
That
bet
could be
that
other
they
things.
absolutely are gonna end up doing that. You take my money if you get Smog. Just take my money right now.
Or do you get a D&D expansion because they have
Oh,
all of
that's
their
also a thing
dragons,
that's
right?
probably
Like,
gonna happen.
so that could be a thing. So I don't know. It's doors wide open for a very cool variant. So I was
Plus
kind of
the Magic
surprised.
Dragon. Oh, yeah, we're already throwing it all.
Yeah. All right. So there was also a news story that got gamers a little bit upset this morning that popped up at the top of the day. So there was a couple of independent studies that got ran, I believe through 14 peer-reviewed things, and I can't remember the number of people they tested, but the results came back that gaming, or gaming habits I should say, may be contributing to long-term hearing loss and tinnitus among gamers. Now, the end result obviously is just don't put loud things in your ear for an extended period of time. Right? That's the end result of this. And they're not trying to say this is only exclusive to gamers. What they're saying is, as gamers, we have some bad habits that they're starting to see develop these hearing issues for people down the road. And interestingly, I thought about it and I was like, man, I kind of do know some people that have been talking about some hearing issues, or several people that have tinnitus. I was like, maybe there's something to this. You know what I mean? Because I wear my headphones a lot and I don't even think about it. But now, granted, I'm usually not playing loud music or stuff in them because I'm usually just listening to myself while I'm editing or whatever. So not large volume stuff, but I could see how just constant noise in your ears could slowly be contributing. And it's something I don't really even think about. Maybe we do need to change our habits as
It
gamers.
was one of the things the doctors asked me about, and let me tell you, you do not want tinnitus if you can avoid it.
Yeah, I remember you talking about a year ago. You talked about it on the show. So yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too. It's only going to get worse because we're starting to get like special headsets and special earphones, and now they're
Yeah.
like one piece contraptions, and all the help. Soon we're probably going to have just helmets. Honestly, the way things are going. So it's something we're gonna have to think about, if because I believe in their study they were saying in the course of a week you shouldn't be doing it for more than like 20 hours at a time or something. And if you're younger, it's even less than that, like less than
Yeah.
half.
And anybody that's creating content is gonna blow past those
Well,
numbers.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So it's like something we should at least be taking breaks, taking the headsets off, maybe trying to listen to stuff without headphones where it's not necessary sometimes, where we're not disturbing other people. Because even me, I'm mostly in my little room, studio, whatever you want to call it, and I'll still have my headphones on just out of habit.
Dragon Cave, is that not what you call it,
Yeah,
Dragon Cave?
exactly. So I should be just like, hey, let me take the headphones off, while I'm working and just turn the volume up on the monitors or whatever.
Turn my headphones up!
Yeah,
Turn them
exactly.
up!
But for whatever reason, I just don't. It's just habit. And I'm just like, man, this is one of those things that we don't think about that and the sad part is a bunch of gamers immediately got upset. Like, well, that's any loud noise or blah blah blah. And people it's like, yeah, but people in other scenarios usually are wearing some type of sound dampeners, whether that's actual earmuff type things or earplugs or whatever. Like we talk about, like, if you're on a construction site, they are usually wearing earplugs, right? You'll see the little plugs with the string connected to them behind their head because they know they're around jackhammers and stuff all day, right? But we don't do that as gamers. Hell, we go to conventions. We go do all this stuff where it's loud and noise everywhere, and we don't even think about it. But that probably wears on your hearing at some point. So yeah, just a cool review. I something
I
to
will
think
say it's
about.
a great thing to write a paper about because in talking to my ear doctor, he says you'll never find what caused it. Because there's so many things that can cause it. Like COVID apparently has some people that get tinnitus. High blood pressure can do it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I guess since I at some point have had all those things, I especially will never know
yeah,
everything
that's
from
true.
headphones to or all of them combined. Who knows,
You're checking every box.
right?
But yeah, I thought that was an interesting review, though. Again, people were upset about it. They took it at kind of out of context, like. But I wanted to be clear. They're not saying gaming causes these issues, right? It's that they are contributing because we have bad habits.
Yeah,
That's really what the takeaway is from that. Kind of the same way I think the example somebody used even in one of the write-ups was it's not saying that like, hey, if we reduce fossil fuels, the environment's magically going to be better. It's like, no, that's one of the things that may be contributing because we have bad habits around how we use fossil fuels. Right? Like we need to fix that and fix a bunch of other stuff. But it's got to start somewhere. So yeah, watch your hearing. Don't wear your headphones as long if you don't have to, especially if you're traveling, because that's the worst. You can put headphones on from the time you get to the airport till the time you get to wherever you land, and you may not be listening to anything on the outside world. But all right, that brings us to our dinner table conversation. And this is something I realized that we hadn't talked about with the turn of the calendar, Brian. So the question I'm presenting to you is, what do you want to see this year from Magic or gaming?
I want to see it be safer for women. I think that's going to probably be my answer until we actually see it become at least a little bit safer for women and to people of color too. To definitely not even a lesser extent, to the exact same extent. And if you fall into both of these categories, yeah, you're still now. Gaming companies are trying to do more in terms of chat, but Kotaku actually just published a piece on this talking about how most women that play games still keep their stuff muted until they've heard some of
Hmm.
the chat and feel like it's possibly okay to talk to people. So it's work has been done, but even more work needs to be done because they're saying that a lot of times, obviously almost everybody at this point has some kind of report feature you can use, but then a couple of weeks later, or heck, sometimes same week, you may hear that same person being just as much of a clown, and so you just at that point you feel like you can assume nothing has been done, or at least nothing that has done anything that might change their behavior.
Yeah, one of my big things kind of falls in that space was just harsher punishment for bad actors. I feel like we have so many systems that we've had for a long time. Hell, even on League of Legends, I've talked about it before. You have some people that would get reported and suspended like 5 or 6 times. Like at some point after the third time, especially if it's in a year window span, right? Like they're not changing. This is just who they are. Like get them out of there. They're not contributing anything. Obviously, you're getting a bunch of reports on the person. Bounce them, right? We just don't need that behavior. It's not contributing anything. It's not positive. It's making everybody's experience worse. No need to
I know
worry about it.
a lot of games, and I thought League of Legends was one of them, but maybe not. Was kind of creating their own Valley of the Trolls, where after you've, like, for example, disconnected from so many games early, you go into a queue where you can only play with other people who disconnect all the time, and then yeah, now you've kind of your
Oh,
punishment is you're trapped in a room where everybody is just like you.
I don't think it's. I don't. They might now. I don't know. It's been a while since I've booted up, so I couldn't tell
I
you.
thought they were one of the games that had that.
But even
And
then,
actually, if you you probably don't watch it because on Apple TV, but there's a show about video gaming on Apple TV called Mystic Quest, and they had an episode where they had a bunch of basically white supremacists get on their server, so they created a server where they just basically ended up sending all the Nazis there so they could yell at each other. And of course, spoiler alert: the Nazis were still yelling at each other because when you get they don't even like each other when there's a
yeah.
big,
See,
huge
like
group of them.
I
Because
don't even know if I'd even want to spend the money on my servers for those people. I'm like, just cool. You don't get the privilege of playing our game. I'm fine with that. Just I feel like that's where I'm at this point. Like, if you're just continual bad actor, don't need you. You
but I
know,
feel like that arguably is one of the best punishments you can give them.
oh, at least in the current state, yeah, for sure. If you're not going to just completely boot them, at least make them deal with the other knuckleheads, right? To see how bad they are.
Because I mean, maybe a handful of them will realize, oh God, is this how I sound? Is this how I
Yeah.
act?
Oh,
What
I'm
would
sure
you hope for?
some number of them, hopefully,
Yeah.
will figure it out, or they're in there long enough that a year or two passes, and as they get older, they're like, "Man, what the hell am I doing here?" Like that's a thing. I think in terms of Magic, uh, kind of want to see some event stability. And I think we're starting to get there where people are starting to come back to events, stores are starting to get tournaments going again, and kind of, people like to say get back to the gathering a little bit. I think we're slowly getting back to that. Would be cool to see more large events happening, and we're seeing a few people schedule some, so I think that would be kind of fun to see that come back around.
I hope it's going to be possible because again, we're already seeing them lose events and things because of the layoffs. So hopefully they figure out. And I know I've seen listings where they're hiring for a lot of
Yeah.
positions. So hopefully
Well,
then they'll get back
recently
to.
Star City is now going to be running the regional qualifiers and the big regional championships as of I think after the next DreamHack one. I think the next DreamHack one's the last one, and then they'll be running all of them after that. So that'll be a thing that's coming, and they have event organization experience and all that. So they can handle it, if they get bigger. But yeah, I think it's just little stuff. I don't think I have any big asks from the industry other than, hey, let's keep booting the knuckleheads. But generally, it's just little stuff, man, across the board. I think gaming as a whole, especially when you talk about large events, conventions, live demos, things like that, like we're still somewhat in a recovery phase from the pandemic for a lot of people. I mean, I've met some people even recently, like they're just now doing some of their first events since COVID, like just getting back out finally. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit. I don't think there's anything huge, just a lot of small things. But I think we can have a good year. Though that being said, 2024 started out hot. Like we
It
got
did.
doors falling off of planes. We got dudes dunking themselves skinny dipping at the Cabela's or whatever. Like I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on. Cat
Yeah.
Williams losing his mind, calling people out. Like, like 2024 has been hot so far. So I don't know what we're in for, but
Jason Whitlock outing himself on social
oh
media.
yeah, that was a bad one too. I mean, you name it. We've already had a full month and we only are 17 days in. So
This year, this month was quite a year.
yeah, exactly. This month was a whole year worth of social media news. But yeah, man, I think we can have a good year this year. I think for Magic, there's a lot of sweet products already lined up, so I don't think we have to worry about that. I mean, hell, we're gonna have Fallout in a couple months. You're gonna have
Yeah.
some. Did we talking about? Was this the Kingdom Hearts year or whatever? Was not Kingdom Hearts. Final Fantasy. Like that's on the docket. We've got some other big set later in the is Assassin's Creed's or is still on the thing too. That's another one in the pipe. So like there's a bunch of stuff, man. We've got
You'll buy it, but you won't actually get to own it because it's Ubisoft. Digital only secret lair. This just it.
who knows, man. So like yeah, there's a bunch of stuff. I would be happy with a lot of things this year. But I think it's going to be like you'll probably have to ask me every few months of like, "Hey, what do I want to see over the next couple of products or over the next couple months?" Because man, right now being in January, seeing how things are going, who the hell knows what's going to happen this year? But why don't you everybody they can find you on social media?
All right. I am Brian Sonic on Twitter /X and Instagram.
And you can find me everywhere at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. And I gotta say, as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome, and most importantly, be awesome to each other.